Maya Johnson's fingers trembled slightly as she placed her diplomatic credentials on the hotel desk. 4 hours of sleep in 3 days. That's all she had managed since beginning the negotiations that could prevent an interstellar war. Her dark eyes stared back at her from the mirror, underlined by deep shadows of exhaustion. The fate of billions rested on her shoulders, yet all she wanted right now was sleep. The luxury hotel room felt cold and impersonal despite its elegant furnishings. Maya had stayed in hundreds of such rooms across Earth and a dozen alien worlds. They all blurred together in her memory, temporary stopping points in an endless mission of peacekeeping. She unclipped the silver diplomatic insignia from her jacket, the Earth emblem gleaming under the soft lighting. It represented humanity's hard-won place among the stars, achieved through blood, sacrifice, and finally, through the words and wisdom of negotiators like her. Maya kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto the bed, not bothering to change out of her formal attire. Sleep pulled at her consciousness immediately. Her last thought before drifting off was of the treaty document, nearly complete after months of delicate work. Tomorrow's final session would seal the agreement between Earth and the powerful Arcturus coalition. A sharp bang jolted her awake. The door flew open with such force that it crashed against the wall, the security chain snapping like thread. Police. Hands where we can see them. 4 officers stormed in, weapons drawn. Maya's training kicked in instantly, overriding her fear. She kept her hands visible and her breathing steady, even as her mind raced to understand what was happening. The officers wore standard city police uniforms, but something about their movements seemed wrong. Too coordinated, too precise. Their faces were twisted with contempt as they surrounded her bed, weapons trained on her chest. "What's going on?" Maya asked calmly, her diplomat's voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. The lead officer's cold eyes swept over her dark skin, deliberately ignoring the diplomatic insignia still attached to her jacket on the bedside table. His gaze held something worse than simple prejudice. There was an alien quality to his hatred. "Got reports of suspicious activity in this room. ID. Now." His words were clipped, the accent not quite right for a local. Maya slowly sat up, careful to keep her hands visible. There must be some mistake. I'm a diplomatic envoy with full immunity under the Earth Galactic Accords. "I said ID. The officer barked, stepping closer with his hand on his weapon. "My credentials are on the nightstand," Maya said, nodding toward her diplomatic identification. "I'm Dr. Maya Johnson, Earth Diplomatic Corps, Security Clearance Alpha. I'm here for the Arcturus peace negotiations." The second officer picked up her credentials, glancing at them briefly before tossing them aside dismissively. "Shut up." "Against the wall," the lead officer ordered, grabbing her arm roughly. As rough hands spun her around and shoved her against the cold wall, Maya's trained eye caught a glimpse of something impossible, a faint purple shimmer beneath the skin of the officer's neck, visible only for a second when he turned his head. The shimmer pulsed in a pattern she recognized from her xenobiology briefings. Not human, not police. The realization sent ice through her veins, but also ignited something else. Determination. This wasn't a random act of prejudice or mistaken identity. These were infiltrators, likely connected to factions opposed to the peace treaty she was finalizing. "You're making this serious diplomatic incident," Maya said, her voice steady despite being pressed against the wall. "Under Article 7 of the Earth Protection Act, I demand to contact the Earth Embassy." "No calls," growled the false officer, pulling her arms behind her back. "You're coming with us quietly." As he leaned close to fasten restraints around her wrists, Maya noticed more signs. His breath lacked the warmth of human respiration, and his pupils contracted vertically when the light hit them. These weren't disguised humans with prejudice. These were aliens with a mission. Their disguises were good, likely molecular camouflage technology from the Procyon system. But Maya had spent years studying alien species. The subtle tells were obvious to her trained eye. "Search the room," the leader ordered the others. find her communication devices, and the treaty drafts. As they roughly handled her belongings, Maya's mind raced through possibilities and protocols. Her neural implant, undetectable to standard scanners, remained dormant but ready. Earth Command would already know something was wrong when her regular security check-in failed in the next 10 minutes. The false officers didn't realize they'd made a critical error in their choice of target. They saw her dark skin and female form and calculated. Vulnerable, easy to intimidate. They hadn't bothered to research who Dr. Maya Johnson really was. Earth's top xenodiplomat, survivor of the First Contact War, and the architect of 3 interspecies peace accords. As they secured her wrists behind her back, Maya allowed herself a small, hidden smile. These infiltrators had no idea who they were dealing with, and that would be their downfall. Cold metal bit into Maya's wrists as the handcuffs locked. The officer leaned close, his breath eerily odorless against her cheek. Maya remained still, her diplomat's training kicking in. Observe, analyze, adapt. You humans think you're so special, he whispered, his voice distorting slightly at the end, the pitch dropping unnaturally low before correcting. Especially ones like you. The racial undertone wasn't lost on Maya, but she recognized something far more dangerous beneath it. Contempt not just for her skin color, but for her entire species. These weren't corrupt police officers. They were something far more dangerous. Maya closed her eyes, appearing defeated to her captors. In reality, she was activating the neural implant hidden within her cerebral cortex. A slight pressure built behind her left temple as the quantum link device connected to Earth's diplomatic defense network. A childhood memory flashed through her mind. Her parents' research station burning during the First Contact War, the strange lights of alien ships overhead. She remembered hiding in the supply closet, watching through a crack as beings with shimmering purple skin moved through the smoke, collecting human research. She was 7 years old then. Now, 30 years later, she recognized their movements in these false officers. The neural link established, transmitting her location and situation to Earth Command. Emergency protocols activated. Help would come, but not soon enough. She would need to handle this herself. Take her, the lead infiltrator ordered, nodding toward the door. The transport is waiting. 2 of the fake officers grabbed Maya's arms, pulling her roughly away from the wall. Her bare feet dragged across the plush carpet as they moved toward the door. If they got her out of the hotel, her chances of survival dropped dramatically. Maya took a deep breath, time to reveal her first advantage. As they dragged her toward the door, Maya began speaking, not in English, but in a series of clicking, whistling sounds that emerged from the back of her throat, a language no human vocal cords should be able to produce without modification. The fake officers froze, their grips loosening on her arms. That's our language, one whispered, his human facade dropping momentarily as shock overrode his control of the molecular disguise. A patch of purple shimmered across his cheek before he regained control. Maya smiled, confidence replacing fear in her eyes. Protean dialect, Southern Hemisphere variant, if I'm not mistaken. The elongated clicks suggest you're from the coastal regions. She switched back to English. I've negotiated with 17 of your species across 5 territories. You're not even good imposters. The breathing pattern is all wrong. Their human faces flickered like bad holograms, revealing glimpses of their true form. Iridescent purple skin, large black eyes with vertical pupils, and the characteristic ridged foreheads of the Protean species. Impossible, hissed the leader, his disguise holding better than the others. No human speaks our native tongue. Few do, Maya agreed. But then, few humans have devoted their lives to understanding your people as I have. She straightened her shoulders despite the handcuffs restraining her. I speak 7 Earth languages and 12 alien dialects. I've negotiated peace between species that have been at war for centuries. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize Protean infiltrators? The 4 aliens exchanged nervous glances. This clearly wasn't in their mission briefing. It doesn't matter what you know. The leader recovered, his voice now carrying the distinctive metallic undertone of their species. You're still coming with us. The treaty will never be signed. The treaty will proceed without me, Maya said calmly. You've already lost. She nodded toward the window, where the first rays of dawn were breaking. The final session began 20 minutes ago. My assistant is presenting the completed documents as we speak. My signature was digitally authenticated yesterday. This was a calculated bluff. The session wasn't scheduled until afternoon, but Maya needed to create uncertainty. The leader's disguise slipped further, patches of his face revealing the true alien features beneath. You're lying. The Arcturus representatives won't sign without the chief human negotiator present. Maya laughed softly. You really don't understand how Earth diplomacy works, do you? We have contingencies for everything, including kidnapping attempts. Her eyes locked with his. The moment these handcuffs touched my wrists, emergency protocols were activated. This wasn't entirely a lie. Her neural implant had indeed sent a distress signal, but Maya knew backup might be hours away. She needed to keep them talking, keep them confused. There's still time to salvage this situation, she offered, her voice shifting to the formal tones used in Procyon diplomatic circles. I can arrange for you to leave Earth space without incident if you release me now. The youngest-looking infiltrator seemed tempted, but the leader snarled, revealing teeth too sharp for a human mouth. Enough. Gag her and get her to the transport. We have our orders. As one of them moved toward her with a cloth, Maya activated the second function of her neural implant. Her eyes glowed briefly with a blue light as hidden upgrades in her diplomatic neural package came online, upgrades that very few knew existed, even within Earth Command. The gag never reached her mouth. I suggest you reconsider, Maya said, her voice now carrying a subtle harmonic that made the Procyans flinch. The consequences of harming Earth's senior diplomat will be severe. Silence. The lead Procyon slammed Maya into a chair with enough force to make the furniture slide back a few inches across the floor. She winced as pain shot through her shoulders, still cuffed behind her back. Their disguises were failing rapidly now, patches of iridescent purple skin showing through the fake human exterior like glitching holograms. The leader's face was the most intact, but even his disguise showed cracks. Vertical pupils visible behind the human light brown irises, patches of shimmering skin at his temples. The other three had given up maintaining their human appearances entirely, their true forms emerging. Tall, slender bodies with iridescent purple skin that reflected light in hypnotic patterns, elongated faces with sharp features, and those distinctive vertical slit eyes. Maya took a deep breath, centering herself. She had faced worse situations during the Centauri negotiations 3 years ago. Compared to that, 4 Procyon agents were manageable. You made a critical error in your planning, Maya said calmly, looking directly at the leader. You targeted me because I look like someone easy to victimize. A woman, dark-skinned, alone. Your first mistake. She sat straighter in the chair, her diplomatic training evident in her perfect posture despite the restraints. Your second was not checking if this room was shielded. The leader scoffed, but Maya could see uncertainty flickering across his features. What shield? Our scans showed standard hotel security. Maya nodded toward the window. Look again. All eyes turned to the large window that had shown the city skyline minutes before. The view began to change. The city lights outside flickered, then disappeared completely, revealing a vast field of stars against the blackness of space. This isn't a hotel, Maya said, her voice steady and confident. It's a diplomatic vessel disguised as part of the building. You've violated Galactic Code 7.3. Unauthorized boarding of a sovereign diplomatic craft. She allowed herself a small smile. The penalty is severe under the interstellar accords that your government signed last year. The aliens looked at each other nervously. The youngest one moved toward the window, placing a long-fingered hand against it. She's right. This is spacecraft-grade transparent aluminum, not glass. The leader hissed something in their native language, a curse based on the harmonic pattern. It doesn't matter. We'll be gone before they notice. Maya shook her head slowly. They already know. The moment you forced entry, the vessel's security systems activated. This was another calculated bluff. The room was indeed part of a diplomatic vessel. Earth's newest technology allowed for small ships to be camouflaged within existing structures. But she wasn't certain if the security alerts had been triggered properly. As the leader paced angrily, Maya studied the group more carefully, noticing details her trained eye hadn't caught before. "I notice you're wearing commander insignia," she told the leader, nodding toward subtle markings on his uniform collar that had been disguised as police badges. Yet that one follows the royal blood marking pattern. She gestured with her head toward the tallest of the aliens, whose purple skin showed distinctive spiral patterns along the neck. Those markings indicate he outranks you by birth. Does your hierarchy know you're giving orders to your superior? The targeted alien's head snapped up, eyes narrowing as he examined his companion more carefully. The leader froze, his expression darkening. The subordinate alien hissed, eyes darting between Maya and his supposed leader. "Is this true, Kraz? You told me this was authorized by the High Council." The leader, Kraz, stepped back defensively. "Vex, she's trying to divide us. Don't listen to her." Maya smiled as chaos erupted among her captors. The royal-blooded Procyon, Vex, advanced on Kraz, while the two others looked confused, clearly unaware of the deception in their own ranks. "The High Council knows nothing of this, does it?" Vex demanded, his voice rising to a pitch that hurt human ears. "You're working for the weapons cartel. They'd want the war to continue. Humans might look physically weaker, but they understood power dynamics across the galaxy better than anyone." Maya had spent years studying Procyon society, their rigid hierarchy, their obsession with bloodlines, and most importantly, their internal conflicts between royal families and military leadership. The peace treaty would cut into the profits of certain Procyon manufacturing houses, Maya said softly, feeding the flames of discord. "Houses that I believe Commander Kraz's family has ties to. The military-industrial complex stands to lose billions if Earth and Arcturus establish free trade agreements." Kraz whirled toward her, eyes blazing. "You know nothing." "I know everything about your people," Maya replied calmly. "It's my job. I know that royal blood members like Vex cannot be commanded by military officers without High Council authorization. I know that unauthorized actions against Earth diplomats carry the death penalty on your world. And I know that right now, your ship is probably being tracked by Earth defense systems." The youngest Procyon, who had been silent until now, suddenly looked terrified. "Is this true, Kraz? If the High Council discovers we acted without authorization—" "They won't," Kraz snarled, "because we'll complete the mission and be heroes. The treaty will collapse without her." He drew a weapon, sleek and alien in design, and pointed it at Maya. "Enough of these games. We take her now or kill her here." Maya didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to a tone of absolute certainty. "Before you make that choice, Commander, there's one more thing you should know about diplomatic vessels like this one." Kraz hesitated, the weapon wavering slightly. "What?" "They record everything," Maya said, nodding toward corners of the room where microscopic cameras were embedded. "Earth Command is watching this right now. They see your true forms. They hear your true motives." Her eyes locked with his. "If I die, this becomes an act of war, not just a criminal offense. Is that what you want? Interstellar war over one failed operation." The four aliens stared at each other, their careful plan unraveling before their eyes. In their arrogance, they had prepared to deal with a helpless human woman. Instead, they found themselves facing a master of interstellar diplomacy who had turned their own hierarchies and prejudices against them. "Eno!" screamed Kraz, his voice reaching that distinctive Procyon pitch that made the room's lights flicker. He pointed his weapon first at Vex, then back at Maya, silencing the growing argument among his team. "We will complete our mission. Nothing else matters now." The other three aliens fell quiet, though Vex's posture remained tense, his royal markings pulsing with anger. The atmosphere in the room had shifted. What had begun as a simple abduction was now fracturing into something far more dangerous. Desperation made even disciplined operatives unpredictable. Maya assessed her options carefully. The handcuffs restricted her movement, but her most powerful weapon, her mind, remained fully operational. She leaned forward in her chair, her expression calm despite the weapon aimed at her head. "Which mission exactly?" she asked with genuine curiosity in her voice. "The one where you prevent the peace treaty." She smiled slightly. "Too late. I transmitted the final signatures this morning." She nodded toward her temple where the neural implant lay hidden beneath her skin. "The document is already secured in diplomatic archives on both Earth and Arcturus. The treaty takes effect in 6 hours, regardless of what happens to me." Kraz's weapon wavered slightly. "You're lying. The signing ceremony is scheduled for tomorrow. Public ceremonies are for the media," Maya explained, as if teaching a student. "The actual diplomatic work happens quietly, behind the scenes. That's how real diplomacy functions." She tilted her head, studying their reactions. "Or perhaps you meant the mission where you try to kidnap Earth's top negotiator without realizing I've been broadcasting this entire encounter to Earth Command through my neural implant." The aliens' faces showed genuine fear now. The youngest one stepped back until he hit the wall, his eyes wide with panic. "You're bluffing," Kraz said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Am I? Why do you think my neural implant was activated the moment you entered?" "Standard diplomatic security protocol. Everything you've said, everything you've revealed about your true forms, your connection to the weapons cartel, all of it has been transmitted and recorded." The youngest Procyon looked ready to bolt for the door. "You were bait," he whispered, the realization dawning on his features. "I volunteered," Maya corrected, sitting straighter. "We knew the Procyon weapons cartel would try something to disrupt the treaty. The cartel has been selling arms to both sides of this conflict for decades. Peace is bad for business." She shrugged slightly, the movement limited by her restraints. "We just needed proof of your government's involvement to present to the Galactic Council." "The government isn't involved," Vex protested, his royal markings pulsing brightly with emotion. "This is Kraz's doing. He's been corrupted by the cartel." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but a royal family member participating in an illegal operation on Earth." She clicked her tongue in a perfect imitation of Procyon disappointment. "The Council will want to know why. They'll investigate every connection, every family tie, every financial transaction." Outside the window, something changed. The holographic cityscape that had briefly returned completely disappeared again. Through the window, they could now see Earth military ships decloaking one by one, surrounding the diplomatic vessel disguised as a hotel. 5 sleek, black vessels with the Earth Defense Force insignia hovered in formation, their weapons systems clearly online. The youngest Procyon made a high-pitched sound of terror. "We're trapped." Kraz rushed to the window, pressing his hands against it as he counted the ships. His weapon hung forgotten at his side as the full implications of their situation became clear. "Your extraction ship has already been detained," Maya informed them calmly. "It was identified entering Earth's atmosphere on an unauthorized flight path 3 hours ago." She shifted in her chair, the handcuffs clinking behind her back. "Your prejudice made you careless. You saw my appearance and thought, easy target. A woman alone, someone whose disappearance might not be immediately noticed or taken seriously." She shook her head slowly. "Instead, you walked into a carefully planned counterintelligence operation." Kraz turned from the window, his alien features fully revealed now as his disguise completely failed under stress. "This was all planned. From the beginning." "Not all of it," Maya admitted. "We knew someone would make an attempt. The weapons cartel has too much to lose with this peace treaty. But we didn't know exactly who or when. She smiled slightly. Your approach was instructive, choosing to disguise yourselves as law enforcement officers, using racial prejudice as your cover. Very revealing about how you view Earth society. Vex had backed away from Kraz, moving closer to Maya as if seeking protection. If I cooperate, testify about the cartel's operations, what happens to me? Before Maya could answer, the room's door, which the infiltrators had damaged during their entry, slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Earth Defense Force soldiers in full tactical gear filled the doorway, weapons raised. Earth Defense Force. Drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them. The commander's voice boomed through the room. Kraz looked from the soldiers to Maya, then back at the window where more ships were appearing. His shoulders slumped as he realized the full extent of their failure. Your prejudice didn't just make you careless, Maya said quietly as the soldiers moved into the room. It made you predictable. A flash of light filled the room as Earth Special Forces materialized through portable teleportation units, weapons trained on the infiltrators. The soldiers moved with precise efficiency, securing each Procyon agent within seconds. Their armor gleamed with the distinctive blue energy field of Earth's most elite defense unit. Kraz dropped his weapon instantly, recognizing the futility of resistance. Vex and the other two Procyans raised their hands in surrender, their alien features now fully exposed in the harsh tactical lights. Commander Reyes, leader of the Special Forces team, approached Maya while his soldiers secured the infiltrators. His dark eyes quickly assessed her condition with professional concern. "Dr. Johnson, are you harmed?" asked the commander, holstering his weapon as a medic rushed to her side. Maya stood slowly, muscles stiff from the tension. She shook her head as the medic carefully removed her handcuffs with a specialized key. She rubbed her wrists where the metal had left red marks on her skin. "I'm fine," she assured them, straightening her rumpled clothes with dignity. "The treaty holds," she announced to the room, her voice steady and clear. "And now we have evidence of Procyon interference." Commander Reyes nodded with respect. The diplomatic court suspected something like this might happen, but using your neural implant to broadcast their confessions was brilliant. "Sometimes the best defense is letting your opponent believe they've won," Maya replied, watching as the Procyon agents were secured with specialized restraints designed for their physiology. Kraz glared at her from across the room. "This changes nothing," he hissed. "The cartel has representatives everywhere, even in your precious Galactic Council." Maya met his gaze calmly. "Perhaps, but now we know who they are." The next morning, as dawn broke over the city, Maya stood at the official treaty signing ceremony. Representatives from Earth and the Arcturus Coalition gathered in the grand chamber of the United Earth Diplomatic Center. Camera drones hovered discreetly, broadcasting the historic moment to billions across multiple star systems. Maya showed no signs of her ordeal as she guided the proceedings with grace and authority. Only the small bandage on her wrist hinted at what had transpired. When she spoke about cooperation and understanding between different species, her words carried extra weight. Everyone in the room knew what had happened the night before. Later that day, footage of Maya's confrontation with the Procyon infiltrators spread across the galactic network. Species across 3 quadrants watched in fascination as one human woman, selected for targeting because of racial prejudice, outsmarted 4 trained alien operatives while handcuffed. The recording from her neural implant showed everything. From the moment the disguised aliens burst into her room to their final surrender. The footage became a sensation overnight. The sight of Maya remaining calm and controlled, using her knowledge of alien psychology to turn her captors against each other, became an inspiration. Young diplomats in training studied her techniques. Military academies analyzed for strategy. And across the galaxy, perspectives on humans began to shift. 3 weeks later, Maya stood before the Galactic Council in their orbital chamber above Earth. The massive circular hall held representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations. Giant view screens projected her image to trillions of beings across the galaxy. The Council had gathered for a historic vote, whether to grant Earth full membership status, elevating humans from their probationary position to equals among the galactic community. Maya had been chosen to represent humanity during this crucial moment. "The vote is unanimous," announced the Arcturian counselor, her translucent body glowing with formal colors. Earth is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities therein. A wave of applause rippled through the chamber. Many of the alien representatives used their species-specific gestures of approval, light displays, scent releases, harmonic tones. The council elder, a Solarian who had lived for over 900 years, rose from the central podium. His crystalline form shimmered as he addressed the gathering. "Humans have shown exceptional adaptability," the council elder announced, his voice translated simultaneously into all galactic languages. "What others perceive as your weaknesses, you transform into strengths. Where others see differences as barriers, you build bridges of understanding." He turned directly to Maya. "Dr. Johnson's actions exemplify the qualities that make humanity worthy of full membership. Intelligence tempered with courage, knowledge paired with wisdom, and most importantly, the ability to face prejudice not with hatred, but with insight." That evening, after the celebrations and formal ceremonies, Maya visited the high-security detention center where the infiltrators awaited trial. The facility floated in orbit above Earth, designed to safely hold individuals from various species. She was escorted to a meeting room where Kraz sat waiting, separated by a force field that shimmered faintly between them. His purple skin had lost some of its luster during his confinement, but his eyes still burned with intensity. "Why did you come?" he asked, studying her with genuine confusion. "To understand," Maya replied simply, taking the seat across from him. Kraz tilted his head, a gesture she recognized as Procyon curiosity. "You could have escaped," the former leader said, clearly puzzled. "When we first entered your room, your neural implant could have signaled an emergency teleport. Why let us capture you?" Maya considered his question carefully. Then she smiled, the expression warm and genuine despite everything that had happened between them. "Because sometimes, to change the universe, you have to show it exactly who you really are," she said. "My people have been underestimated for too long. By the Procyans, by many others. You saw my gender, my skin color, my species, and calculated. Vulnerable. That prejudice didn't just lead to your failure. It revealed a fundamental misunderstanding about humanity." She leaned forward slightly. "You'll be treated fairly during your trial. That's another thing you should know about us." As Maya left the detention center, she looked out at the stars through the facility's observation window. Earth hung below, beautiful and blue. For centuries, humans had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer. They were part of something vaster than they had ever imagined. And today, they had taken their rightful place in that greater community, not by hiding who they were, but by embracing it completely.